what I'm doing, does it align with my values? Is it bringing me joy? I don't really, frankly, give a shit what anyone else thinks anymore.
Yep.
And it's such a different way to look at success.
We really tend to align our work towards our personal values and what matters deeply to our core.
So we need to shift the way we look at female entrepreneurs as not just always this like small business. Living Richly podcast. We're super excited you're joining us. Wendy and I are back for Real Women, Real Talk, and it's been a bit. So we're excited to get things started today. And we're talking about how women are redefining success when it comes to business. So big topic.
Big topic. And I'd say one that we get messages often on because people see us as, oh, you're entrepreneurs. How did you start? Yeah, so I think this will be a good one.
Yeah, I'm excited. And I think, I know we're going to go into our backstories a little bit just for new listeners who probably haven't maybe listened to our full episode. But let's start with how success has changed for you over time, because we evolve, right? So if you've evolved, I can only imagine success and what that looks like has changed.
Yeah, I think if I see it as like a then and now, I mean, then would have been being perfect in everything, like the curated life, the Pinterest life, checking off a never-ending to-do list and just trying to keep up with everything and everyone. And then when I take a look at it now, and I feel like I laugh because like when you get to your 40s, the second part of your life begins.
You're only in your 20s, Wendy. I don't understand.
Of course, I'm sorry. But now it's about showing up authentically.
Yeah.
Even messy. Like you start to care less about what other people think.
Yeah.
You start to care less about how you are showing up, and you're focused more on really being aligned with your values. So for me, saying no to things that aren't serving me and not really giving a shit as much as I used to about what people think, because I'm feeling good with what feels good for me.
Yeah, I so relate. I won't use ditto because we've been told we're not allowed to use it anymore. But it's very similar. I think as you grow and evolve as a human, right, as a person, you look towards success very differently. When I was young, it was like supposed life, the accolades, you know, like how are you running this business while you work full time? Like it was outward, right? Always looking outward. And I know for me now it's like, am I happy? Like does what I'm doing, does it align with my values? Is it bringing me joy? I don't really, frankly, give a shit what anyone else thinks anymore. And it's such a different way to look at success. And I'm thrilled. Like there's something beautiful about your 40s when you can get to that space.
There is. And I think you have to go through all of that stuff before to get to where you want to be, like at our stage right now. Not that people don't figure it out when they're in their 20s and 30s, but I think for the majority of women, it's keeping up with the expectations of, you know, I should be doing this, I should be doing this. And then suddenly getting to the point where you're like, but I'm going to do this now.
Yeah.
Give a shit what you think.
I love it. Okay. So we talked about jumping in a little bit to our backstories just around our, you know, our experiences with businesses, building businesses, being entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Why don't you jump in and then I'll add my bits on the end.
So I feel like I knew from a very young age that I wanted to do more, be more. My father's a teacher. I always had a passion for helping others, which is why I spent most of my time in an HR career, because that is what I was doing. But I also just felt like I wanted to be able to create a legacy, and I wanted to be able to impact people in a different way where people felt seen, people felt heard. And so I had to go through all of those things, from being laid off from my corporate career. Like I spent 17 years on the corporate side in an HR capacity, being laid off from that, and then jumping full on into teaching fitness and coaching. And then the real life started. And now, you know, being an owner of 3 fitness studios. So, you know, all of that has progressed over time. But when I look back, I wouldn't be where I am today had I not gone through all of that other stuff and really taken the opportunity to, yes, it was a leap, but I wasn't going to know unless I actually did it. And I just, part of it was I had to trust and be okay with making mistakes, fucking things up, not getting things right. And changing my circle as well to people who were going to support me in the phase that I was at and not what I used to be.
Evolution, right? Evolution of who you surround yourself to as you progress. For me, it was I've always known, like I out of high school, wanted to go to business school, and went to Western University to do that, and didn't make it into the program. Instead, had a degree in economics, and I'm actually grateful for that because I think I learned far more about business by doing business. And so, you and I similar. I've worked for the feds, I've worked for private sector, small, big, and I've run a bunch of businesses over time. I've done, my own consulting businesses, coaching businesses. I did some MLM for a while. I had Organically Gifted, which was this huge online retail business when I had no idea what I was doing, and like from wholesale to retailers to food that has expiry dates. It's like an organic gift basket company before its time. Like we're talking 2006 when I had to hard code the shopping cart because Shopify did not exist back in the day. Like it was hard back in the day. So I've done all that. And now today with Get To Mindset and BoldLab, like I feel really fortunate that I've had this sort of evolution of all these different businesses over time. And now I'm really clear on what I want in my business. And for the first time too, with BoldLab now, I'm in a partnership, and that's new for me. My other businesses were mine, and this is very much a shared space. And so I'm really leaning into that and enjoying that.
I love it. I love it. And seeing everything that you've done in terms of jumping in and trying all the things, even though you may not have had everything figured out. And I think that's probably one of the big things is people will say, well, how do I start and what do I do? And sometimes it's just getting in there and trying things and figuring it out as you go. And not I feel like as women, we always need to get ready and be prepared for everything. And a lot of this is just find something that you're passionate about and jump in and try it. And if it doesn't work, try something else. And if that doesn't work, try something else. So I love your story around how many things that you've done to get to where you are today. I
think like you just go. We often wait until we're like 100% ready to launch a business, and you're never 100% ready. No. So get comfortable with being 60% ready to go, and out the door you go. If you could tell your younger self something, what would it be from that sort of business?
How long is the show?
Right. I would give her a cuddle, not coddle, but give her a cuddle. I'd give my younger self the biggest hug.
A little coddling sometimes.
Maybe a little coddling.
You know what? I think it's really recognizing not everybody will understand. Don't expect anyone to understand. We spend so much time thinking and convincing and feeling like everybody will be on our side and everybody will understand. And then we get frustrated when that doesn't happen. And so I go into it, I go into it sometimes.
That's a lot of words. That's a lot of words.
Thinking, don't expect anyone to understand. Frustration is misplaced expectation. And so I think if I could go back, it would be spend less time trying to convince people why this is a good idea or why this will work. And just do you.
Do you. I love that. Do you authentically. Because it's your life at the end of the day.
What about you?
I think it's about you're going to fail. We touched on this, but you're going to fail so many times. Like I was at an event recently, and Michelle Romano, one of the Dragon's Den, she was there, like entrepreneur, right? Like very successful entrepreneur. And she talked about her failures and gave examples. And I remember just being like, great. She's like, you're going to fail far more than you ever succeed. And if you aren't prepared for that, then that's not the route for you. Like she was really clear about it. She's like, you're going to fail. So you have to learn how to deal with failure and then adapt from failure and learn from it. Right. And that's how you grow your business. I'll give an example for me personally with Organically Gifted. like I said, didn't know what I was doing really. And I'm selling through a website online. I have to ship gift baskets, right? And everything had to be eco-friendly. And back in 2006, that was really hard. And so even my packaging had to be eco-friendly. So I get my very first online order, right? I'm so excited. I don't know this person. It's not family. It's someone. I pack up the order. I ship it out. And like 2-3 days later, I get an email and the person's like, everything broke. In my basket. And I'm like, because it was a food one, so it's balsamic and olive oil. And so I guess the glass jars had broke. I never shipped anything. I honestly just put them in a box, ship them out. And all of a sudden I was like, oh shit, like I need packing material that's eco-friendly that I can actually wrap them in so they don't break. And I'm panicking because everything's so expensive because it's eco-friendly. So I'm going to the store. I have to find this corrugated cardboard. I'm like, oh, this will work. Trying like a million different things, wrap it, like obviously it's my first, send the new one. And I'm just like with fingers crossed, like, did I get it right? Did it work? And thankfully it worked. And that's what I use moving forward. But like, it's so easy to let like one setback, right? Like your first order is massive. So you're like, I was so excited. And then all of a sudden it was like such a letdown. And I'm like, okay, but you got to solve for it.
You do. And sometimes situations like that, a lot of times we gravitate to, I can't do this. This isn't going to work. But you pivot and you buy new packaging.
Right? Find some corrugated cardboard. That's all I'm going to tell you.
Bottle of olive oil out. I love that.
So I think there's a difference, and I think we're going to talk about it. I know. There's a difference between men and women and how they define success in business, and that's what we're talking about today. So I'd love to get your take on how you think it's different for women versus men.
Yeah. Oh, so kind of lots of different directions we could go in this. I think and of course, not categorizing everyone in this category, but I think for women, it's more about connection over competition. We often, as women, prioritize collaboration, communities. Again, not that men don't. I just feel like it's different. And relationships that uplift us and that feed our souls. We really tend to align our work towards our personal values and what matters deeply to our core versus the promotion, the income. Again, not that that's not important, but I feel like for us, our personal values and impact tend to, and sometimes too much, because then we can lose sight of the other stuff as well.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Never
happened.
Never happened.
I think it's bang on. I think we take more of a holistic approach when it comes to defining success for business. It's not about bottom line only. It's about, bottom line matters. Got to pay the bills. Like we all want to take home a decent salary, but it's also like, are my employees really happy? Am I giving back to my community? And is the work I'm doing in line with my values, as you said, and who am I partnering with? Who are my clients? Do they align with my values? Like I get to choose all of that, right? And so women really do take that mindset approach where they want to look at the bigger picture. And it's not all about ROI. It's not all about the bottom line and investment.
Totally. And I can relate to a personal example when I was in, and I still am in, network marketing, and not falling into the trap of needing to have everyone as a client. I don't need to have everyone as a client or a customer. Like who falls in my niche? Who am I serving? And it's not about getting the most clients. It's about who are the clients that are going to be connected to me that kind of align with what I'm looking to do. Whereas sometimes it can be opposite, where it's just like, I got to get everyone. No, you don't have to get everyone.
No.
And not everyone's going to like what you have. And I think for men, it's like, oh, okay. But for women, it's, oh, why don't they like me? Or why don't they like
that people pleasing nature that takes over
tie to it,
right? Because we are wired differently and we do business differently.
Yep.
So what are some of those traits for women when you think about, in leadership roles, owning a business? What are the traits that maybe are not necessarily different than men, but just maybe different overall?
Yeah, I think, again, to your point, like not categorizing everyone, but I think successful female entrepreneurs really lead a lot with empathy and authenticity. And we feel comfortable in challenging that vulnerability is not a weakness, but it's seen more as a strength. So just the example that you were giving with, oh my gosh, the Michelle? Like the
Michelle Romanow.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
being vulnerable and her sharing her mistakes and owning that is just like, we can relate to that so much more than somebody who's like not being transparent with that. And I feel like building relationships, I feel relationships for women were very tied to that as well. And so taking and looking at the relationship, it's more about that connection versus that power. And a big feel in wanting to lift others up and wanting to rise together. Yeah. Or at least I think so. Like, if you're not with people that don't want to rise together, and that might not be the right people to be working with, I don't surround yourself with.
Yeah. I would argue not all women. I've come across some men and women who do not uplift.
Yes.
There's a lot of downward lift.
No, 100%.
A lot of squashing. And so, but I agree with you. It is
a lot of power trips.
Yeah. Who you surround yourself with. Yeah. I think women bring a lot of collaboration to the table. Like, I think about all the roles I've had in whether I'm working for someone else or it's in my business, collaboration. We're natural collaborators, right? It's like it's that community factor. It's that nurture factor that we're wired for.
Yes.
And so we tend to bring that into business as well. And when you're collaborating and call it nurturing of some form, your team, you have a happier team, and your team produces more. They're more productive. They're happier. They want to come to work. They want to do great work. And so when you're able to lead with that, it can have huge impact.
100%.
Right?
And if you're not in that space where, especially if you are working in a female, kind of centric environment, if you feel like every time you are going in to work or whatever it is that you're doing, where you feel that competition comes over collaboration, again, like it might, because women in general, just a side topic, like we can be really hard on ourselves, but we can also be very competitive with others. And social media doesn't help that at all.
No.
And I would say, like, if you don't feel good about feeling like you're going into a collaborative circle, again, it might not be the right place for you.
I agree. Yeah. And you get to seek out whatever you want.
Absolutely.
Like, that's up to you to carve out.
Yep. We always have choices.
And if you're feeling that environment's all competitive and that's not where you want to be.
Yep.
Or if you're all competitive and you love it, great. But find what works for you.
Yeah.
Why do you think so many women don't take the leap? You and I have talked about this before, where we're like, we have people be like, I don't, like, how did you do it? I don't know. Like, I don't think I could do it. What do you think holds women back?
I think a lot of women feel like, and they spend more time focusing on, are they ready or are they qualified? So I'm a great example. Like, I don't have a university degree. I have a college diploma. I took hotel restaurant management. I ended up not going into the hotel restaurant management space because the last program I took in college was an HR program. And for a second, I thought, oh, maybe I should go and do my HR designation. But at that point, I didn't have enough money to continue going on to school or like to continue on doing other programs. I thought, well, maybe I'll do that later. But when I started working for the bank, I was more in like a banking kind of credit type of role.
Yeah.
But then I moved into HR because that was just such a passion for mine. But all through the while I was going through that, I still had those moments of, I don't have my CHIRP, which is your HR designation.
Okay.
I thought like maybe I should go back and do it. And so once that HR chapter closed and I moved into the fitness space, it was still, now, yes, I have my certification to teach fitness and stuff, but I don't have like a kin degree and I don't have a life coaching certification, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I find a lot of women spend so much time like, am I ready? Am I qualified? And people have looked at me and be like, well, who does she think she is, giving advice on X, Y, and Z or what, and you decide yourself if you're qualified. You decide to put yourself out there. And a lot of what I've done has been based on my experience.
Yeah.
But getting messy and screwing up and changing routes and whatnot. But I think that if we could spend less time focusing on, it's like having kids or getting, especially having kids, right? Like there's never a good time. And
I'm just laughing, sorry, because never a good time for most things, but yes.
But I think the fear of failure, to your point, and then just the fear of but maybe I'm not qualified and maybe somebody else is. There's always going to be somebody else that's more qualified than you, but you decide if you're qualified.
Yeah, I love that because it's so true. And it's that fear, right? It's that fear of, can I do it? Is there someone better than me? There's always someone better than you. Like that's just, there's always someone better at your craft than you.
Yep.
It doesn't mean you're not qualified to do what you want to do. And I think too, it's an imposter syndrome, right? Is around that. But I also think imposter syndrome comes into play because women just don't see themselves around the table when it comes to CEOs and the leadership, level, like the C-suite. So we see it shifting, I hope, for like our kids' generation. I hope to see more women in those roles. But the truth is it's really hard, as a woman, and you don't see a lot of successful CEOs, right? So you see the Bezos and the all these men and quite frankly, a lot of white men in these roles. And those are the CEOs, the stats in the States. And I'm not going to get it totally right, but there are more CEOs named John in the States than there are female CEOs.
It's crazy.
There are more men named John who are CEOs.
John, if you're listening.
And there are female CEOs. We don't see ourselves. So if women can't see themselves out there, if women don't see that to mirror back, right? It's really hard to feel like you're qualified. Right. So that imposter syndrome gets even higher because you're like, well, if they can, no one else is doing it. So how can I do it?
And that intimidation factor can be huge, especially in a corporate setting.
Yeah.
Well, any kind of setting, but yeah.
Yeah, big time.
Oh, John.
Oh, John. Okay. So with your business, how do you bring in some of these qualities we talked about, like empathy and collaboration? How do they show up?
Yeah, I think so. For me, it's about intentionally creating space, intentionally creating space where people feel seen, valued, heard, and whether that's coaching someone towards, living their most authentic life or motivating a member and really understanding what their why is.
Yeah.
All of those types of qualities. And a lot of it comes with practice.
Yeah.
And just being able to generate and have those conversations to really help understand what the tie to that emotional intelligence is to whoever I'm speaking with, connecting with, coaching. Yeah. And I just feel so deeply about helping people feel seen and heard and valued. And I feel like there's so many voices that are unheard.
Yeah.
And everybody wants to feel like a somebody. And so I tie that so closely into what I do with Orange Theory Fitness and what I do with the real life as well.
Yeah. And how do you, I'm going to throw a curveball question at you. When he's like,
when you do
it's not in the show notes.
Not in my notes.
No, but how do you find people resonate with that? Right. You've been in multiple environments where you've received it or you're giving it, but what is the response when you do?
Well, I think a lot of it comes down to trust.
Yeah.
And, when I look at the network and the community that I've built online, all of it's organic. And a lot of it has come over time, over the last almost decade of putting content out there that resonates with people, but also that helps people understand what's in it for them. Not here's my shit, buy my stuff.
Connection.
It's connection. And it's really connecting to people and remembering those and just taking a genuine interest. And so that ends up trickling into word of mouth. But it takes time, right? It takes time. Like people say, like, how did you build such a great online following? And it's connection,
it's authentic.
It's authentic. And it's being really open and honest about my struggles and things that I haven't gotten right.
Yeah.
Maybe part of it is making people laugh and a little bit of humor around it. But I feel like all of that built up over time has gotten me to where I am right now. But it's not Amazon Prime. Like it doesn't happen overnight. Like sometimes depending on what you're doing, it takes months, it takes years. But if you don't start today, you're prolonging. Yeah. I don't even remember what your question was.
My question was, how do people feel on the other end when they receive it? So they feel great.
Know if I answered that.
They feel great. That's what I take from that is they feel fantastic.
Well, and I feel they feel trust is such a big thing. Trust and integrity is such a big thing for me.
Yeah.
So I like to feel that, and I'm pretty sure that they do because I've had people share is that they do feel safe
Yeah,
they
and
do have that trust,
and that's what you seek out too, right? In return. So
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah.
I know at BoldLab, one of our core values is empathy, and that's our business core value, and it's how we do business both internally with our team and externally with our clients. And it's been such a learning for me, right? Always been innate into who I am, but to have it as a core value is kind of really cool. So we see it with our staff. We're all female right now. Not to say we're not hiring managers, we're all female right now. And what's really awesome, I've talked about this before on the show, but we understand women's health. And frankly, we don't talk about women's health enough in the workplace. And women get a period every month. And women are openly bleeding. And I'm going to keep saying it. And it makes people really uncomfortable. But having that conversation, my boys hate it. I'm sure Steve hates it. Steve, are you here? Hey! But I'm using the language to be jarring because it allows space for the conversation. Mm-hmm. Yep. Every month, there are many, many women who have a very, very difficult time. Migraines, cramps to the point where they can't get up, massive amounts of blood loss. We're not talking small amounts, and we don't talk about it. So our team is allowed to come in and say, hey, this is a really bad month for me. I need a couple hours. I just got to sleep it off, or I'll come in, or I need the day. And we're like, okay. Yeah. And I never experienced that. And as 50% of the workforce, to know that you don't have to take a sick day and lie to your employer about it, right? It's that open, and we have empathy there. And it shows up too differently with our clients. But what's so great is, because we lead with empathy, we really want to get to know them as people, right? Yeah. And so many of our clients at BoldLab see us as a true extension of their internal marketing team. Yeah. We become part of, their extended organization because we want to get under the hood. We want to know what makes their customers, their clients tick. We want to get in there and really get into the heart of what it is. Yeah. And so when you lead with that, it's amazing what flows out of it.
I love hearing just that word empathy is just connects to my soul so much. And I just think it would be so wonderful if so many other organizations had that as a core value. And for people listening that are like, my company doesn't even have core values. Right. I would really encourage those people to step up, work with your HR department, or work with the leadership. Leaders go first. So if your company doesn't have core values, or if empathy is an example. If that's something that, share it. Guaranteed other people think about it, but just nobody acts on it. I just think that that's just such a wonderful, wonderful trait to have.
We're going to do an exercise. Actually, we're doing an offsite for a couple of days. We rented an Airbnb. We're all going to go hang out. Very excited for that. And I borrowed, Eric has those core values. You guys have them too. They're we can link it in the show notes, but they're great. So we've done the exercise, but we're going to do the exercise as a team. And we're really curious to see what comes out of it. And that's a great exercise. It's really easy. It's interactive. It's something I would highly recommend people do.
Yeah. I love it.
Okay. Curiosity, risk taking, two big pieces when it comes to business and entrepreneurship. Yep. How do they show up for you, or do they show up for you?
Oh, they show up for me all the time. Yeah. Even now, right? As being a new owner in not just one, but 3 Orange Theory fitness studios, I've really had to, and I say really like it's already happened, but I'm still learning to step outside the norm, push past fear. I had a little meltdown last week with Rob on I don't know if I can, right? So when I get overwhelmed, I cry.
Right.
As a lot of women do.
I don't know what you mean.
And it was just I don't know if I'm cut out to do this. I don't know if and a little bit of imposter syndrome, but I've over the last 10 years, I've really had to force myself to push past the fear and do the thing anyways, and think about, I will jump and I will probably make mistakes. Well, I know I'll make mistakes. I'm still making mistakes. Yeah. And just trust that there's no mistake that's big enough that can't be fixed or can't be adjusted. And sometimes it's, knowing that I'll stumble, I'm still learning, I'm still growing. And sometimes it's hey, yep, take full responsibility and ownership for that. Messed up on this, but here's what I can do to fix it. And the moments of courage and creativity around that and transparency has shaped where I am right now. You have to be okay with being incredibly messy. And and sitting in it and
Yeah.
reflecting in it, because and it's gross.
Yeah.
It's gross.
But everybody goes through it, and it's like you're not isolated on an island and you're the only one that, but that's how it feels in the moment, right?
And it's just how accepting are you going to be of that in terms of what you tell yourself, because your mind listens to everything you say.
Yeah.
So if you're beating yourself up because, well, I didn't get this right, or I didn't get that right, or, you know, that is where that's what holds you back significantly.
Yeah.
So, what about you?
Well, I love this question just from risk, because I think there's such a misconception that women take less risk than men in business, and it's not actually true. The research shows women just take more calculated risk. Yeah. Women like to look at it, analyze it, understand, what are the potential risks. Mm-hmm. Men go on instinct, they go on gut, and not one is not right or wrong, right? But it is, women tend to want to understand it before they jump in. Yeah. So they do take calculated risk, right? They do take risks. They go about it very differently. Yeah. And I would argue that's exactly what I've done throughout my career is having a plan, right? I would never just jump into, for Organically Gifted, I was on mat leave. I had my first son, Zach. He was 3 months old. I'm like, I'm bored. I'm going to build a business, right? So, of course, right, because that's what every person should do. Don't do it. wait till your kids are older. 0 stars. Oh my God,
do not recommend.
Yeah, no, not at all. But like having that business plan and understanding what the risks were. I put together a business plan like I was going to get a loan from a bank, which I wasn't, but that allowed me to understand what were the potential risks, what was the potential investment, what was the potential return on investment. Like, I think it's okay if you take calculated risk as a woman and do your planning. There's nothing wrong with trusting your gut and jumping in if you're like that, but most women aren't like that. So just be okay with doing the planning part of it.
And taking responsibility for doing your own research, doing your own, right? Don't expect anybody to hand it to you. Like there's a lot of tools and resources out there, but a lot of this is going to come from, our own self-internal motivation and drive to, and sometimes I'll tell people like I'll tell my kids, like, figure it out, right? Like I'll tell my staff, like, I'm here to support, but I'm not here to do it for you. Yay. Figure it out.
Yay.
Google, ChatGPT, talk to people, like connect to,
That's how you learn. That's how you grow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And ChatGPT has all the answers these days. I swear to God.
Apparently. Clearly.
Women, when we're talking with people, how do you take the leap? There's a lot of pressure for women. What are those sort of pressures for why maybe women don't leap versus why men don't leap? Because there's differences, right? Around the two.
Yeah. I would say that there's a lot of pressure to stay in a safe job, especially if you, have the house and the kids and the partner and the dual income, and you fall into the lifestyle of what you have become accustomed to. And so there's a lot of pressure to stay that traditional path. And that could be tied to, both of us are divorced and both of us have kind of gone through that path of not following the tradition, and not playing it safe and going that route, because it can be really hard to break away from the expectations and the societal norms around what that looks like. But we're also constantly expected. Now, part of that expectation is what we put on ourselves to prove ourselves.
What?
Again, I know you have no idea what I'm talking about.
I don't know what you're talking about.
But the pressure to be perfect in our careers, the pressure to have like the Christmas lights need to be up and turned on, by a certain time. The Christmas mugs need to be.
I know.
I love mugs.
I know you love mugs.
But all of that, right? Because you see it on Pinterest, you see it on your friend's Facebook page, and it's the pressure. And a lot of that we build up in our minds. So I think we often feel the weight of having to do it all.
Yeah. Do we ever? And like to add to that, the latest research shows, so in a 2-family working home, typical stereotypical family, husband, wife, both working full-time family, a woman on average spends 2.5 hours a day more than her husband on managing the household. Yep. And that's a lot per day.
Yeah.
And so, when you talk about what holds women back, it's time.
Yeah.
So if I'm busy planning for the birthday party, if I'm busy thinking about, I got to flip the laundry and then I got to do the sheets. Oh, and Sarah's got to go over here. And like your brain is just on fire.
Yeah, all the time.
And that just keeping the household going. I was shocked by that stat. I was like 2.5 hours a day. That's a lot of time when you think if you're working full time.
What I could do with an extra 2.5 hours.
Oh my God, we'd take over the world if we had 2.5 hours for a day.
I already have.
It's like shocking stats. So I think that's something for sure. I also think access to capital is a big one for entrepreneurs. So, VC funding, I've read a lot of different stats on it where it's like, it's as low as 2% of all VC funding goes to women. I've read up to 20%. Regardless, it's still not enough VC funding. It's hard for women to get access to that capital. We also don't always ask. I'm fully mindful of that, but it's hard to get access.
Yep.
And there was Harvard Business School did a study where they took the same business plans and they had men and women present the same idea to VCs, same company. One was presented by a man, one was presented by a woman, and 70% of the VCs said they'd invest in the man and not in the woman. Oh. And it's the same business model. So we need to shift the way we look at female entrepreneurs as not just always this like small business, right?
Totally.
There are amazing women leaders out there looking for VC funding, and there's still this stigma out there around, can she do it?
Right.
So that needs to shift too.
Yeah. And one of my favorite episodes was when we had Tiffany on.
Yeah, fantastic. Tiffany Westerman. If you haven't listened to that episode,
great episode.
We'll throw that in the show notes too, because she really talks about that and talks about her journey and what that looks like.
Yeah.
Okay, so we just talked about how women don't ask the best for what they want, but oftentimes we don't know how to even vocalize what we want. How do we do it? How do we help more women kind of get out there and find a way to find their voice and say it, go after it?
Yeah, I think so. Once we kind of figure out what we truly want, now we can spend an enormous amount of time, spending years and wasting so much time figuring out what we want and just trying to get that perfection. But I think there's really a lot of things in life are gray and not black and white. I think this is pretty black and white in my opinion. Is asking. You have to ask. You have to be okay with asking wrong or awkward or unsure questions to be able to navigate who to connect with, who to find, whoever in the community of whatever it is that you're trying to do.
Yeah.
And not just like one or two people, like lots of people.
Yeah.
And part of that is building a network. Part of that is getting really comfortable with even communication. And so part of that might be practicing in terms of learning how to communicate and ask. Yeah. But I think speaking with confidence takes practice, but recognizing and reminding yourself that you have a voice. You get to speak up. You get to have a voice, and your voice matters just as much as anyone else's. And nobody can, people can tell you that all the time, but you have to believe it yourself.
Yeah, it's that self-talk.
It is the self-talk, right? So, going through my own journey, leaving HR and then getting laid off like 2 weeks after I just bought a house, and then jumping into fitness, and really the unknown, but at the same time, recognizing that people could tell me, oh yeah, you could do it. But if I don't believe it myself and I'm not recognizing that my voice matters, even if people don't agree with me, that's okay. Not everybody's going to agree with you.
No, and you have to push through the fear, because the fear will be there.
Oh my God. And the fear will take you out.
Out every single time.
Every single time.
Yeah. And I would probably just reinforce what I said about the business plan that I did for Organically Gifted. Write it down, get it out of your head, put it on paper. Oftentimes, if you can just see it, then it almost like empowers you to start vocalizing it. You can't vocalize what you don't know or you can't see. So write it down, right? Get clear on what it is and what it isn't. Get clear. Like, I'm a big planner. Like, if you're starting your own business from scratch, you need a plan. You need to understand what things cost. You need to understand how much potential revenue. You need to understand your market share. You need to understand your audience. You need to understand all those things before you jump in. I'm not saying plan to like plan, but understand. You need a bit of a a bit of a plan before you go out the door. So if you articulate it on paper, you can then vocalize it. And then what I think is so good, vocalize it and go find a mentor, because someone else who's in business who can help coach you is everything.
Yeah.
And whether that's someone who's a business coach that you're paying, great. Or if that's someone else in the community, get into a network of other female business owners. Just find a community or find a mentor who can help you navigate through, because at the beginning it's hard. Like there's a lot of ups and downs and a lot of days where you're crying and you're overwhelmed and you're like, why did I do this?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's never going to work. Blah, 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 I'm so glad that you mentioned the mentor and a coach, because we often think my income is going to be cut. I'm not going to make enough money. I don't have money to invest in whatever, but investing money within reason in a mentor or a coach, even if it's just for a session or two, right? Like you take what skills you have and the books that you've read and the webinars that you've watched, but then you take some money and you invest in the rest. It's because we don't have all of the skills, and it can save so much, right? Instead of spending so much time thinking like, oh, but I could put that, I'm just throwing a number out there, $1,000 to, whatever, wherever else, helping you get really clear on what it is. And because a lot of times people say, I don't know where to start. I don't know how to build a plan. I don't know what to do. A coach or a mentor, I can't speak highly enough about how valuable that is at the beginning. Yeah, it helps you pave the path.
Yeah, you need to outsource what you're not good at, and that's the truth. So you want to outsource, right? Like if accounting's not your thing, well, don't be crunching numbers all day, because that's like you're going to spend 5 times as long as you need to, because it's not something you like to do. Yep. And if you're not good at it, well, just own it. And then you outsource that and you focus where you're really good. Yeah. I know for BoldLab, before I joined, like Joanne and Terrell, my business partners, they're creatives. They're not, super smart women, but had never set up a business before, got a business coach. And I can tell you, when I went in, I was like, you could tell. Yeah. They're like, yeah, our business coach. And I was like, yeah, you can tell. Yeah. And I'm like, they were like, best investment. So I like 100%, stick to what you're good for, or good at. Yeah. Good at. Yeah. I'm getting that one all mixed. Good at. Good for. What? Do what you're good at. Yeah. It's hard today. Words are hard today, Wendy. Yeah. But then outsource the rest. Yeah. Yeah.
And I know we'll move on, but I just want to say, if you don't have the money for it, women are very resourceful. Find something in your house you're not using, sell that shit on Marketplace. Really though. That. And use the money for guaranteed there's stuff, right? People will be like, I don't have the money. Yeah, you do.
You can always find the money.
Always find the money.
I agree with that.
Yep.
I agree with that. Okay. What's some other advice you would give to women who are, jumping into business?
Yep. Celebrate the small wins. And it could be, a lot of times we think, like when I coach, I talk a lot about micro and macro. And a lot of times we think that things in life in order to celebrate them, they need to be big, right? So like on a weight loss journey, like, I'm celebrating that, I lost 25 pounds or 50 pounds. What about the first 5? Yeah. What about the fact that you slept all night? What about the fact that you went out for a walk during your lunch hour? I had a conversation with somebody like this yesterday, put that, block your calendar off as a private appointment from 12 to 1 every day, or 11:30, to give yourself some grace and flexibility to pivot, but celebrate that micro win. Yes. That's what you did 3 times a week. And you have to learn to be your own cheerleader. I think a lot of times we wait for people to cheer us on. Is that amazing? Of course it is. We all love to be celebrated, and we all love to, receive that support. But going back to what I said before, when you learn to celebrate yourself and show up for yourself and cheer yourself on, oh my gosh, that's a game changer.
Because you just don't care what anyone else thinks.
You don't give a fuck.
You
what
don't care.
thinks.
And I don't need your cheer in the corner, because I've got my own little inner cheerleader in my head.
Pom-poms and everything.
Right.
Yep.
Oh, maybe a glass
of wine.
Maybe a glass of wine. I still love that. I think I would say just be authentic, and you touched on this, but you've got to do what's true to you. So don't go into business with something that's not aligned with your values. Like you have to feel authentic when you're talking about your business, but also you want to connect your heart, which is your values. So it has to align with what you believe in. Like, if you believe in eco-friendly products, don't go start selling some product that isn't aligned with that and it's full of greenwashing. Like, it's a really simple example. But
it's a great example.
It has to be something that you're passionate about, and it has to be something where you can show up authentically. Because as an owner, as a CEO of your own company, everyone can tell when you're not being authentic. Yeah. So for you to be authentic means you have to fully connect to what this big idea
I love
is.
it. And there's a lot of stuff out there that look good because, like your friend is doing this, or like Bitcoin was a huge example where people were like, oh, maybe I'll do that, and it's because it looks like, I can make money. But if you're not passionate about something, how are you going to be able to speak to it? And people, especially women, we smell inauthenticity a mile away. So to your point, if you're not authentic about what you're passionate about, what you're doing, don't just do it because everybody else is doing it or because it looks good on Facebook or Pinterest or whatever.
I still don't know how Bitcoin works, for the record.
Neither do
and I have read it.
I'm not good with numbers. I'm not good with money.
Not for me. So to your point, right? Yeah. So it's a great example.
I outsource people to do spreadsheets because I hate anything like Google spreadsheet. Excel gives me a rash. Like I can't.
It's like legalese for me. I can't read it. I try and I'm like, nope, need a lawyer. That's why lawyers are there. Yeah. Okay, so we're getting close to wrapping up. This is the Living Richly podcast. So let's talk about, what does living richly mean for you when it comes to your business?
I'll tie it back to just creating space for people to live unapologetically, show up as authentically them, prioritize their well-being, but also be able to pursue their dreams with confidence. And even if they have no one in their circle to help them, sometimes we believe in other people before they can believe in themselves. And so helping people fill their cup even just a little bit so that they can take that next step forward. Like, living richly for me in this topic is all about leading with heart and giving back and sharing. Sharing is a big thing. I find, like, I'm kind of sidebarring here, sorry, but
we never sidebar on this show.
Right. We can be very competitive, and it drives me batshit crazy when there's people who are very successful don't want to share their secrets, right? Because they don't want other people to have a piece of the pie. Yeah. There's so much fucking pie. I'm sorry, I'm swearing a lot today.
I swore a lot today too.
But there's so much pie.
There's a lot of pie.
There's a lot of sun for people to shine. Yeah. So I'm all about sharing, right? Sharing. I just think that's such lead with your heart.
Lead with your heart. Yeah, I think for me, it's all about, especially the last 2 years, it's been about carving out a life that I want. Yeah. And what I mean, like, I never asked myself, what do I want? Okay, I love to work 4 days a week. Great. So I created that. And now for myself, and our business is now a 4-day work week, right? So we all work 4 days a week, which is great, which gives me time to do Get To Mindset, right, on the side. And that's my passion project. And I carve out the life I want. And that's the beauty of it, is that you can set it up however you want, because you get to kind of create that space. So for me, living richly is I won't say work-life balance, because we all know that doesn't exist, but it's the ability to have a flexible schedule. Yep. It's the ability to set up my, if I need to go to a doctor, I just go. I don't ask for permission for anyone. I want to take vacation, I take vacation. We obviously coordinate our schedules, but I don't have to ask anybody to do any part of it.
So and
good. That works for me. And that's what I love. And that's also why I feel so much joy in what I'm doing. Okay, last little piece of wisdom. What's the little tidbit you want to leave our listeners with?
So, what you just said about stop asking for permission, right? Okay. It's easier to beg for forgiveness than to spend an enormous amount of time asking for permission on certain things. So just do it, and trust yourself. Yeah. Listen to yourself, right? Get rid of the noise. Sit in that silence. Yeah. Like when you said, like, I never really asked myself what I want. No. Guaranteed there's so many people that don't, because again, we're living that supposed life. Yes. So trust yourself. Stop asking for permission. If you have an idea, like 4-day work week. Yeah. No, probably other people are like, I wish I could have ask.
You can.
Figure it out. Yeah. Make it work. Yeah. Make it work.
Okay. I love that. I would say just do it. Yeah. Let go of the fear and just go after what you want, because you will regret later on that you didn't do that one thing because of fear. Yeah. So we know when people are on their deathbed, right? It's the things they didn't do that they regret, or their people, they want their people around them. Right. So just get out there and do it. Like honestly, what do you have got to lose, period.
Okay.
Okay. Awesome. This was an amazing
It's a good
conversation. Really great conversation.
Good one.
Thanks so much for joining us. Powerful conversation today. As always, if you found something interesting or you took away a tidbit, please share this podcast along. We're trying to spread the Living Richly message as broad as we can. Also, be sure to check out our website at livingrichly.me, where you can sign up for our 15-day life vision challenge. I haven't said it in a while, but it's a great time of year for you to start thinking about maybe what you want in 2025, and it can really help you map that out. And you can also sign up for our Facebook private group. That's the Living Richly Nation. And those conversations are amazing. Such a great support network and just a really great positive space where you likely want to spend your time. And remember, however you're listening to this podcast, make sure you're following. That way you'll know when the next new episode drops and you'll see it right away. So until next time, thanks for joining us, and get out there and continue living your best life.